Hello, everyone. It's Martha Novak. I'm so glad to talk with you today. We are doing our series on being vulnerable, and part of being vulnerable is to come to grips with our guilt, our shame, and of course, end up at self-forgiveness. That's what we're talking about today relative to being vulnerable. So I'm glad you're with us. I'm very glad you're with us. We are at Thanksgiving week. We're going into that. And I think there's an awful lot to be grateful for right now. Many people don't feel that way, but I think life is what you make it. So I choose to make it that. Lots to be grateful for. I hope you will too. All right. Well, I'm going to start out with a prayer to get us all on the same page. And get me on the same page, quite frankly. And then we're going to launch off with our information today. We are a live show, so our guest call-in number is 347-850-1647. Hello, Michelle. Good morning to you, my darling. And for those of you that are on Blog Talk Radio listening in, we are getting messages on Facebook Live, which is our good morning cat. So when you hear me talking to my friends, they're writing me, and I'm so glad. Good morning, darling. All right, so here we go. Let's do a quick prayer. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything in this world is, thank you so much for our being together as people that just are under the banner of wanting to know more about ourselves, about you, and finding out, honestly, that it's all the same thing. We are the aspect of your energy, known as us. We now ask that you show us how we are in our own ways, that we may be the perfect channel for love, that you put us here to be and to contribute through. We thank you so much for this. And now we ask that we give up knowing anything, that we may be the perfect channel to listen to you, for it is the you through us and through all things that know it all. And we ask to listen to that. Thank you so much, dear God, for all of this. We say this prayer now in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to this show today. We thank you for it all, and so it is. All right, so let's talk about, I want to talk about an article that I found on the internet, which I thought was very good. She's a counselor and a therapist. Her name is Anna Deeds. I scout for really good articles or books or whatever people have out there so that I can address them in the aspect of consciousness. That's what we do here. A lot of what we do is energy psychology, and and business, by the way, because I'm a business coach as well. I've worked in the arts, so you get that aspect of me from time to time as well. I hope I won't bore you with my theater stories and film stories. But you keep in mind that what we do here is consciousness. That's our end result. It's a different end result than most people have, who might want their performance to be better, or their problem to be solved, or they want to heal in some way and just feel better. Well, all of those things are part of studying consciousness. Indeed, they are. But there is a lot more, and that is the ability to think in a very conscious manner, to see all life that way, and ultimately to become one with it in such a way that everything is 100% all right. Now you say, how can that be? Nothing's 100% all right. We're not 100% all right. But the system is. And the more you go into consciousness studies, the more you do this, you go, yes, everything is 100% all right. And the only objections you can come up with are indeed from the ego child's mind in some aspect. Now, you don't have to believe me. You'll prove it to yourself if you go far enough, and that's what that's the way it should be, quite frankly. But I am going to put on the table that if you study this and study this very seriously and long enough, that's what you're going to find. Going into our subject of guilt, shame, and self-forgiveness as part of consciousness, as part of vulnerability being part of consciousness, we really see that saying I'm going to be more vulnerable is not what it seems. It's not a switch you click on, nor does it come if you were just more emotionally intelligent. Certainly that helps, and that's part of it. But most of all, it is a system whereby we are ourselves. We are drilling toward vulnerability if we are conscious beings, dropping the pretenses that we have been all our lives and what we've strived to do, and realizing that there is a lot more that is supportive and wonderful for us all, and how to work with that well as the aspect of the living God we are. So, I'm trying to certainly break down for you this the idea of vulnerability. You can't truly be vulnerable if you feel you are totally guilty and shamed. How can you do that? The normal thing to do there is cover it up. If we don't cover it up, we live a pretty miserable existence, because then we implode in it. The fact is, what we should do is the third choice: get over it and put it in its place and realize that life goes on. We're going to talk about the day that in a lot of aspects. So in this aspect, you can truly be more authentic and vulnerable. And I'm so glad you're with us today. Certainly, guys, write me on Facebook Live and ask me any questions as we go along. You're also welcome to call me at 347-850-1647, which gets you immediately on the air with me so we can talk in person. Okay. Now, going back to Anna Deed's article, her article is Learning to Forgive Yourself and Let Go of Guilt and Shame. I've been doing a course on guilt, shame, and being vulnerable, and self-forgiveness being part of it, and a lot of other things, by the way, self-acceptance, self-compassion. So I'm stopping along the way because I found this perfectly lovely article. Anna Deeds is indeed knows what she's talking about. So here we go, with my spin on it, of course. Guilt and shame serve an important purpose in our lives, she says. Well, I think that's important to talk about because they indeed do. Guilt is that little twinge, Anna Deed says, that you feel when you are about to do something that you know is wrong. Guilt is our conscience, if you will. Its purpose is to alert us to what we are about to do, and that what we're going to do, whatever this is against our values. Now, if you all will recall, about a month or two ago, I guess it was 2 months ago, I did a show on values. And I'm going to stop here for a moment with Anna Deeds and go right into something that I said then that has every bearing on now. And that is, you need to get on the internet, find a value list. Just look up list of values in your browser. Find the longest list you can possibly find. Hello, Jay. Thank you, Jay, very much. I'm so glad that you're with us today. Find the longest list you can find of values. And to start this awareness program, what I want you to do is find a long list, and I want you to choose 3. Now, here's the rub. This is not an aspirational exercise. I do not want you to choose things that you want to become or you are in the process of becoming. I want you to choose the things that you are 99 to 100% of the time right now. right now. I want you to hear me say this because even my advanced class got this wrong, and several people did. This is not an aspirational exercise. All right? If you aspire to values, that's all I'm talking about, you will fail. You are setting yourself up to fail because they are in the process of becoming. They aren't intrinsically who you are right now. You see? Now, I'm wanting you to choose 3 things, only 3, that you are right now. And another month or 2 of working with this in a very deliberate and conscious manner, you're going to add another 2. All right? Now, the point of this exercise is to be very, very conscious and to bring, I'm going back to the 3, these 3 values into every single thing you do, every interaction. Every single thing you do has these 3 components to it that you say you are. Okay. That's what I'm wanting you to realize. And what I'm wanting you to see is in some of the time, I don't want a lot of the time because it's setting you up. 100% of the time, they're always there. That 2%, I'm wanting you to notice that when something happens that you feel bad about, you have crossed the boundary. You have not brought that 3 values fully into that moment. You may have abandoned them. Now, the important thing about this exercise, before we go back to our lecture, is this. You need to deliberately and consciously have a piece of who you are that you take into easy situations and hard situations, that you work with in a deliberate and conscious manner. That's a very powerful exercise to do. My advanced class is still struggling with it because they wanted to be more sometimes than they are. I want you to choose what you are and be proud of it and bring it into every situation. This is what you have to give. So the reason I'm stopping here and saying you might need to go back and listen to that program on values, or you may yourself want to do the exercise that I'm recommending right now, is because it is something that you hold on to of you in every situation. We're all in our ego child's mind buffeted around by external circumstances and people and how they feel, but who are you? We must develop that solid sense of self. And this is one of the very important avenues to that. I am recommending it highly. Sometimes it's hard to choose 3. Choose 3. It's a commitment to live by these essential things that are part of you. Don't choose something you don't understand, like love. All right? Love is so multifaceted, like vulnerability, even more multifaceted, that I don't think anybody understands it. And certainly no one understands it in the ego child's mind. I wouldn't choose authenticity because nobody's authentic until they are. Choose practical things. You know, I think, I don't remember all my choices. I think I remember 2 of my first choices because I always do the exercises that I recommend for other people. And one of them was a real love of beauty. I truly have a love of beauty. I will not be happy in my life if I don't have some sort of beauty around me or create something beautiful, which is my second thing, which is creativity. That's certainly me. I'm not sure my third one. I think it might have been, I'm not sure, quite frankly, kindness, love, something like that. But whatever you are, that's what you are all the time, okay? Or almost all the time. All right, going back to what Anna Deed said in her article, that value system that I just expounded on is our internal set of beliefs that guide our behavior. In consciousness, it's more than that. It is who we are. It is the avenue to the sense of self that we hold on to once we expand that list and become those things. And we become those things over time, not by turning on a light switch or by willing it in our minds that we're going to be that. You can't do that. It won't stick. So she goes back and says, guilt warns us that we need to stop and do something different. But when we ignore our feelings of guilt and continue to do whatever it is that we believe is wrong and cross our values, we feel shame. That's where shame comes along. Shame is when we internalize guilt and we begin to believe that we are a bad person and we did something wrong by ignoring our feelings of guilt. Now, one of the things I want you to understand is shame is a self-attack. Guilt is just feeling guilty about something. It doesn't really have to do too much with the self itself. You understand? Sorry about all the repetitions. It does have to do with whatever is around us, whatever we did in interacting with our environment. But shame, oh my dear, shame is the self-attack. And we cross that pathological line and we say, I am bad. I am selfish. I am. Instead of, I had a selfish moment, I did a bad thing according to my values. You see, that's the difference. And that's the shame of this, because you're a fine person that needs to support themselves now and learn from whatever it is that we all did and go on. You understand? Instead, we're beating ourselves up and we are self-attacking and making a pronouncement on our life. I was laughing with a friend the other day about something that happened in early in Michael's and my marriage. I don't remember what it was. I don't even remember what it was. We were having a heated argument about something or other, right? And I said, you're an asshole. And he said, you're an asshole. And I said, absolutely I am. Because I was being that. We were all in the ego child's mind before we, could unite and be all right. But this is what I want to say to you. Later, when we talked, I said, darling, I wouldn't have even married you if I didn't know you were a fine person. I think that's the reason you married me as well. We are nice, fine people. So when I say that word to you, that you're an asshole, and I teased him one time and said, Arschloch, and that's the German word for asshole, and he just burst out laughing, and so did I. The argument was clearly over. I had found that word somewhere in my reading. So I was lying in wait. Anyway, what I'm wanting to say here, he's only an asshole in the moment, and so am I. That isn't a pronouncement on our lives, guys. And you should not do that to yourself, please. I want you to wake up to the fact that you are doing it to yourself, because that's what we do a lot of times in the ego child's mind. That's what we do. Don't do that. I want you to wake up to that and try to stop thinking that way. And if you cannot, certainly call my company or find somebody that you can work with, because that is a pathological line crossing that is not in your best interest. Hi, Peter. Yes, he did. Peter was bringing up the fact that John Bradshaw did a lot of work on shame. I indeed have heard of him, and the inner child concept was huge. Absolutely. I've got a CD that I think is $1 or 99 cents that I have online about the inner child. It's actually an inner child meditation, if you all are interested in that subject. I think John Bradshaw really had a lot to do. He was one of the groundbreakers on shame, as I recall, and I read his book early, and I thought it was very, very good. I really do. again, keep in mind that what we're doing here is we're going past some of the things that are said. At least I hope we are doing that. That's certainly my intention. But he's great, and I do recommend his book. Thank you for bringing that up. All right. So the purpose of shame, if we are going to see a purpose to shame, right, is that it propels us to right the wrong that we've committed in some way. We will go and apologize, or we will do something like that. But sometimes, if we have not learned to work with emotion well, and that's a lot of people, guys, you're not alone if you happen to recognize that. If you have not learned to work with emotion well, if emotion scares you, if you're not particularly emotionally adept, you will feel overwhelmed. And when you are overwhelmed, you try to hide what you've done. You stuff it inside. You internalize it more. So you think that, and by the way, if others do discover that we have done something in this state of emotional denial of ourselves, really is what it's about, our shame increases, you see. And we don't know the right thing to do in these situations. We just dissolve because we're so ashamed. But I'm going to tell you right now that in everybody's book, hiding guilt and shame only it exacerbates more guilt and shame. So we have to get it out in the open. We have to talk about it. We have to be willing to put it in its proper place. I mean, after all, if I say, no matter what you've done, darling, is that all you are? The only answer is no, that's not all I am. It's something that I did. It's something that I'm holding. It's something that I'm putting a lot of energy in. I need to stop so I can live a life, right? So guilt and shame really become quite the vicious cycle. And it goes something like this, and this is Anna Deeds, and I think she's absolutely right about it. So you do something wrong, and then you feel guilt. You don't correct that wrong, and then you feel shame. And then we lie, and we cover up what we've done in some way. We fantasize. I'm taking this in my arena. We make it more than it is. We feel, because we are living a false life, we feel even more guilt and shame. The cycle is repeated over and over and over again. Not a happy way to live. So, in Anna Deed's article, she does go on to give us some wonderful advice, and I think it's good advice, and I will take it a step further. She said, breaking the cycle of guilt and shame involves facing our wrongs. Keep in mind that guilt and shame is the vicious cycle when it is not interrupted. So we have to do an interrupt. And one way we get out of the cycle is to fully own up to what we've done. When I was lecturing on this recently, I said, so what does that mean when somebody who, I'm just making this up, beats his wife, says, oh, I'm sorry, please forgive me, it won't happen again, and yet the cycle continues. Is that a sincere apology? Is that owning what you've done? No, it's lip service. And what I am saying to all of you all is know the difference. Know the difference between a sincere owning up, a sincere act of accountability and responsibility, and one that is not. You'll know if the cycle repeats itself. Okay, that was not meant. Taking responsibility for the wrongs we've committed is really part of our emotional maturity. So we must learn to do that and do that well. Um, we have an advantage in my classes because we've been together, the advanced class has been together for a long time. What did I figure up? I think 16 to 20 years or something like that. I used to say 19, but we're at another year now. So we've been together a long time. We know everything about each other. We have been encouraged all along to tell the truth and to put it on the table. That class is so powerful because everybody knows everything about everybody else. We can't hide anything. And people just tell the truth. So when they're ashamed of something, they know they're going to have a very safe forum without any judgment where they can say, hey guys, this is what I regret. This is my shame, you see. And that's very powerful. Someone in my class not long ago said to me, I don't want to, I'm not ready to talk about this yet. And I said, that's just fine. What I put on the table then for the class, and I think this is extremely important for you all to know, is that this was not fear of the prejudice of the class. This was her own holding a gun against her head and saying, you are bad. You understand? And that was her shame. And she ultimately, we hope to get her past that enough for her to be able to talk about it, because that is when she's really going to be free, when she comes out from under the judgment itself about anything. That's the important thing. Okay. Moving along. Accepting the consequences for a certain behavior is really being accountable. So, if I offend a friend, I will certainly go and apologize. It is up to them to ever love me or trust me again or not. But I have done what I am supposed to do. And I think that's really important to know. We do take a chance on someone loving us when we are that honest. Most people in the world, and I am going to say most people in the world quite deliberately, don't take a chance on this kind of love. How do you know it's out there if you don't take a chance on this kind of love? Sure, they may turn their back, but that tells you exactly what you've got. You know where you stand, so go make another friend if they do that. And try to be a better one yourself this time, you see? Okay. Certainly facing what we have done and facing what we regret. It's not just what we have done currently, it's what we regret in the past. Allows us to take the next step, and that's important. The next step, number 2, is correcting our wrongs. Finding some way to make up for what you have done will put an end, certainly, to the cycle. But many times we can't correct a wrong. The person that we have wronged is dead, or that we don't even know where they are, or it was from our real long ago past. Some things really are truly broken and cannot be fixed, and we have to face that fact. It's fine to go and apologize and fix it in some way, and even ask the person, what can I do to fix this? If they say what you can do and then it goes against your values, for God's sake, don't do it. That adds insult to injury, right? And you can say that. I can't do that because it does go against my values. What if I do this instead? Is that all right? So you can negotiate this. The other thing I want to say that is apart from this treatise, which I think is lovely, is I go back to that marvelous old Chinese saying, which is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is today. I think all of us need to open our minds past personality. I strongly feel this, because we are involved in the personality cult But the fact is, all of this is just energy. So if you have done wrong in some way, a good way to make up for that is to be fully present right now with someone, to connect with people, to learn a real conscious wisdom and give that to people as a contribution. There are things to do for people all over right now. Right now. Now, I'm not saying do things for the rest of your life and resent that. And no, I'm saying this is with a glad heart. This is knowing what you can do up to a certain point, not doing more. I know a woman who's entirely self-sacrificial and gives everything she has away, and it takes the blame for everything. Is that what I'm talking about? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I am talking about getting straight and getting what, really seeing everything realistically, putting everything in its proper place, seeing what your talents, gifts, and abilities are, allowing whatever you think you did to change you enough to make you generous and kind and good and contributory, but not at the expense of self. I hope you understand. The solution always to something like this is not going into a hole and pulling the covers over you. It is actually, the solution is using yourself to make the world a better place and add value. That's the whole reason that all of us are joined to consciousness, right? You see, if you didn't have it in you, you wouldn't even listen to a show like this if you didn't know it was there. And it is there. So now what we must do, instead of having all our energy regretting and all our energy condemning you, let's now put it into the present moment and generosity and caring and sharing yourself. The third thing that she suggests, Anna Dean suggests, to break the cycle of guilt and shame is asking for forgiveness. And certainly I think that that is an important part of this. As I said, it has to be sincere. Can't be the addict's, I'm so sorry, it'll never happen again litany, because it will happen again. This is a sincere asking for forgiveness. Certainly, when somebody forgives us, it does a lot to relieve our guilt and shame. But we have to be mindful that it is really about us and owning what we've done and bettering ourselves by asking for forgiveness. I think that is bettering yourself. And so a lot of people say, I don't deserve forgiveness. Whatever they have in their minds that they've done. I don't deserve forgiveness. I want to say to you, to Spirit, that's a pretty ridiculous comment. Because all forgiveness is about making the world better, releasing yourself from the energy that doesn't serve into the energy that does. You get it? Releasing you from the energy that doesn't serve, regret and vilification and unforgiveness, into the energy that is more contributory. That serves the world. You see, there is, guys, an energetic collective that we're contributing to. We can contribute to the chaos out there. Oh, there's plenty to contribute to. We can contribute to the anger. We can contribute to the outrage. Oh, yes, by all means. Not going to make you happy. It's just going to make you angrier. And a lot of times we join these movements and things because we're already angry. And if we have any kind of, attitude about that, we will jump on board because it's the way we relieve ourselves, right? Instead of facing what we need to do and getting over ourselves so we can help in a pure and wholesome and life-enhancing way. That's what you're here for. Forgiveness is part of that. Releasing the old energy that is tied to this egregious thing you think you've done, and releasing it into the present where you can contribute out of a sincere privilege of doing it. Okay. One other thing about that statement, I don't deserve to be forgiven. So that was the big part about forgiveness and that, But I want to go to the word deserve. Deserve. There is no deserving in this world. Deserving has to do with our old Judeo-Christian teaching. Maybe in all the teachings around the world that we have to do something to deserve God. That is erroneous thinking, because God is all you are. Everything, all the money in the world, all the consciousness, all the unconditional love, all the talents and gifts and abilities, everything's all built into you, and it was there when you came into this world. But the system of God is such that we are in our ways until we aren't. And that's what we must do here, is simply know ourselves enough, know God enough, to get all that out of the way in the right way, not in by saying, oh, I'm well aware of that. I'm past that. I have forgiven. Let me tell you, I don't think so. Why? Because most people don't know how to do this any other way, so they say, oh, yes, I've forgiven them, when they haven't at all, yourself particularly. We must reach an actual level, an honest level of forgiveness of self and others, and it is entirely doable. But we can't think in the cult of personality anymore. This isn't about personality. This is about energy. Your energy is stuck in non-forgiveness of yourself or others, and it needs to be freed in order to serve the world, and let that in some way change you for the better, so that you are more generous with your information and more. That's the way to do it. And consciously and deliberately doing that, when you overdo it, when you decide something to do something, and that you're going to give at the expense of self, guys, that's an issue. It's the same issue. Whether you are hiding in a hole, or whether you, and vilifying yourself with a strap for doing what you did, or whether you're out there giving all your worldly possessions away, it's all the same energy. So, what isn't that energy? Having a sincere, balanced approach to everything, making sure that you are in the highest self, which always says, it's me and you creating a situation whereby we both win. We both honor each other, whether we agree or disagree. It's a balanced approach, and it's done in love. Going back to number 3 and asking for forgiveness. She goes on to say that some people may be so hurt by our actions that they don't want to remember or forgive the person who hurt them. And that's true. But we must take a chance on love or not. And you already live in the or not thing. We all do in our ego child's mind. time to take a chance on people loving who we really are, in the sincerity that we can bring forth right now on the way to authenticity. Number 4. This is her suggestion for breaking the cycle of guilt and shame. She says forgiving ourselves, of course. I think that that is the thing that we have the hardest time doing, is forgiving ourselves. And we must. Whether the person we have hurt forgives us or not, she says, guilt and shame may continue until we forgive ourselves. Bottom line is you've got to forgive yourself. And again, it's a very selfish act not forgiving yourself in the end, because it's all about you, isn't it? Down there, you know, in your little hidey hole, pretending to be something you're not forgiving yourself. You don't reach out and add value to the world that way. We must, in the progress of growing, forgive ourselves and let that energy, let what happened change us so that we learn from it, we don't do it again, we make the world a better place, we make people safer that have had that happen to them, that we, in some way, allow ourselves to learn from it and be used from it. That's it. For higher purposes. Forgiving yourself does complete the healing process of this, but it can't be faked, guys. And most everybody fakes it, because this is a solid process. This is a process that's in place. It must happen this way if you're going to forgive on the deepest level of your being. A lot of people don't want to do that much work. It's painful sometimes, and they don't want to be in pain. They don't want to take responsibility. They'd rather just keep on with what they keep on doing. And the irony here is there is a fantasy always involved in this, saying if I just keep pretending, I'm going to get what I want. That's what your fantasy tells you. Fantasy upon fantasy. It's like adding too many cherries to a sundae, huh? One will do. Okay. So she goes on to an exercise which I honestly think is a very good exercise. I'm going to pass it on to you with some notes. First of all, she says, write down everything that you believe you did wrong. These are your regrets. Now, what I have found in doing this exercise is that a lot of people don't want to write down their regrets, or they'll write down their most shallow regret, the one that they don't mind me messing in, right? I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for the regret that you really regret. I'm going to give you an example. So you have a person that has had a series of failed relationships, and she is in the cult of personality and saying who did what to whom, and that she didn't step up, and she's vilifying herself for that. All right. But what really is going on here? What really is going on here, and this is what I mean by don't stop with shallow regrets, drill down, is that she's always been, she's not had a center. She doesn't have a sense of self. That's been missing in every single relationship. That's the constant. The fact that she's not there. So she will fantasize about a relationship she had 20 years ago, 30 years ago, as the love of her life, and how she helped contribute to the demise of that relationship. And that's a lot easier than saying, I have never worked for me. I have not been worth it. I have not done anything just for myself. And so when the relationship ends, and when, in fact, when all the relationships end, she fantasizes about them because she can't let go of the hopes and dreams she had with this person. Why? Because she has no hopes and dreams for herself. Do you understand this? Are you worth doing for? I just lost. I'm so sorry about that. I am not going to video chat with you on live radio. And that's what that interruption on Facebook Live was. I'm sorry about that. Won't happen. So I think that's extremely important. Are you worth doing for? Are you? You've got to find your own hopes and dreams. And let me tell you, when you do partner with someone, it's going to be extremely important for you to continue to take these into your relationship and have them deepen and grow, whether or not the other person shares that or not. Michael and my husband and I are very dissimilar in certain aspects. He's an engineer. You see what I do. I'm an artist. I'm a visionary. That's what I do. On that level, we can just appreciate each other. There are other things we do have in common. Many, many things. As a matter of fact, we tend to see life the same way, which is nice. But it would be a mistake if I gave up who I was, my hopes and dreams for me, and he gave up his hopes and dreams for him. You must have them. They can't be connected to another. People are temporary here, my darlings. I'd like us to last forever. We're not. Not in these aspects. You have to hold on to you. You have to have you. So when I said this that I'm saying to you right now in class, people went, oh my God, I see what I'm leaving out as well. So I'm going to put that on a table. That's a common thing that people leave out. Who are you? Now, how do you find out who you are? I'm going to send you right back to your values. And you working on these and you bringing these forward and you having these in your life and then adding two more and add two more and absolutely have them in front of your mind and realize that when you feel bad, you have abandoned one of them or all five of them, at which time you're going to really feel like the bottom of a dirty bird cage. You have to know what's going on in your life. This is the consciousness that we talk about here. Okay, so write down everything you believe you did wrong. These are your deepest regrets. Drill down past anything that seems mundane. It is far from mundane. It's just a hint that there's something deeper. Okay. Number 2. Examine what value of yours you went against when you committed the wrong. Real important. So go back and look at who you really are in terms of your values, these 3. Then go back, even if it was something you did egregiously 20 years ago that you have regretted and not forgiven yourself for. What values did you go against at that time? But you got to find the values first. That's what I mean. A lot of the work that I do and the way I teach builds on itself. So I do very strongly suggest that you all form some study groups around some of these teachings and talk about these things. I can't tell you, if you have a group that, we started out with quite a large group. We've pared it down to a core group that is dynamite. They are non-judgmental. They're kind to each other. They're always there for each other. We talk about these things there. Nobody hides anything. Eventually, everything is said. It is the most remarkable team. I suggest you create one too. Let people come and go. It's fine if they do. they didn't belong there. Of course, several of our people left and came back and said, no, this is what I want. One of them was so cute. She said she left because the work was always changing, deepening and growing. And then she came back, she said, because the work was always changing and deepening and growing. So, okay, that's fine. Let people be who they are. But for God's sake, do the work, okay? And I am delighted to talk to these groups privately, for sure. Number 3, think about who was hurt by your actions. Actually list them. Who was hurt? Certainly you. Put yourself in the mix. Who else was hurt? List them. I did tell you this was no fun, but this will free you, okay? And why isn't it fun? It's only not fun according to the child's mind, who thinks he ought to feel good all the time. Number 4, consider other people who were directly or indirectly hurt. I know this sounds over the moon, but I'm going to tell you anyway, so you can think energy. Whatever you did that was against love, probably somebody you hurt. So it might have been society at large. It might have been the collective consciousness here, that you contributed to the fear and the pain of the collective consciousness instead of to the light. And you're listening to the show to be one of those bearers of the light. Well, then I would claim that. That's an indirect hurting other people. I think that you must realize that your influence, every soul's influence, goes far beyond what you think. It's a Wonderful Life story, but it's true. The reason that film is so popular is it's true. Every life has an impact on every other. The consciousness, what you are thinking in this moment is either contributing to one arena or another. All right, number 5. Ask yourself why you committed whatever the wrong act is. And I want to say something about this too. Certainly it's important to say, I didn't have all the information at the time. That was the family I grew up with. We were violent. Whatever's true, certainly write those things down. But if someone made you do something, don't take the blame yourself. The only thing that you are guilty about is that you didn't listen to yourself at the time. But you couldn't, because you're just beginning to do so now. So give yourself a bloomin' break. Okay? And let's see things not in some airy-fairy light or some self-vilification experience, but let's see things realistically. If somebody talked you into something, they bear the blame as well. So just place it there. I'm not going to let you stay there. But for God's sake, this is the time for realistic thought. This is the time to really see things as they are. Number 6. Think about what you could have done differently. Now, I don't like that line, so I'm going to throw that out. Let's say this. If what was happening then happened now, what is your course of action? What's your course of action if that were to happen right now? Let's see what you've learned from it. Let's see what you do with it. And then I'm going to add another line here, which is, what do you do in the now with this energy, because what I want you to do is not think personality, but think energy. Okay, you're freeing this energy up. Here is the energy that you now have created from your forgiveness. It's coming forward into the present. This energy must be invested now in some way. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to learn with it? How do you apply it? Do you deepen your relationships that you have with each other? Yes, Peter, thank you so much. He said, I like the do-over idea a lot, but that's what it's about, isn't it, darling? It is a do-over because it's just energy. You know, we are vilifying ourselves. We are persecuting ourselves for the mean thing we did to our dads or whoever it was that we did, without saying, well, my dad is gone, but man, I can have deeper relationships with people, kinder relationships with people. I could work with people that are depressed. I can find out everything to do to help them. I can apply my gifts and talents and abilities in a loving direction now that would make the world better, because it isn't about the personality anymore. It's not about the dad or the person across the street or anything. It's about how you use your energy and what you're contributing to on the whole. And that's what it's about. More energy. People are affected, certainly. Oh, I don't even know how much time I have left. Oh, okay. I'm okay. I got so involved. As that happens. Okay. So I think what's so important here is how to use ourselves now. Certainly you can brainstorm ideas with other people, but I want to tell you that anybody who's interested in this kind of program is a creative soul and a creative thinker, and often inspired by God. So I think a lot of the ideas are going to come internally. If they don't, somebody like me will find them for you. Or get you out of the way so you can find them for yourself, I think is a more accurate way of saying that. We don't have to be articulate, by the way, to ask for forgiveness. We just need to ask for forgiveness. We just need to be ourselves. Again, it's about taking a chance on love. It's about calling ourselves on, do-overs. That's great. Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm so glad that you're listening to the show. And yes, and I love you too, and Jake, and Tracy, and all of you. So let's talk about how to forgive ourselves, because this is certainly where we're going right now. I've mentioned several things, and I will expand on them here. But talk therapy is just one of the most important things you can do. Talking over this with trusted others. It is a marvelous thing to create a group that you can trust, who's interested in the same thing you are, who will argue. Our group, I'm going to tell you, they had their little petty squabbles in the beginning. It was fine. We fixed them all. Everybody, went in there and talked to each other, and we've worked through a lot. Now we're pretty unshakable. This is a great group. You need to start and not be afraid of starting. I think it's extremely important with technology these days. You can even create a group across the United States. You can do anything. It's not just that it has to be local, although I must say it's very comforting to be together, I think. And I think people feel that. Now that I have moved, I do try to make sure that I am back with that group in person every month or so, because we all miss each other. It's a wonderful thing to do that and to have each other. Again, the whole purpose is no judgment and kindness and awareness and consciousness and helping and contributing, being generous. That's it. I want you all to be aware of one thing that I do see from time to time, and that is shutting down. When something is scary, when we feel threatened, when we don't know how somebody is going to take what we're saying, we often shut down. We become really quite non-emotive. There's just a, less animated presentation instead of just being ourselves. Hi, Betty just tuned in, and Betty is one of our favorites. Thank you, Betty, for listening. I'm so glad you're with us today. So I think it's really important to realize that when you're doing this, you'll have a tendency, as we all do, when we're afraid of something, to shut down. We'll just go somewhere. We'll miss what people are saying. Bring yourself back. This class is so wonderful. Betty is in it. As a matter of fact, she can tell you that you just go, I missed that whole thing. Apparently I went somewhere. Now, the whole class says this to me. So, say, I missed that. Say that again. And that's just fine. And the nice thing about a radio show is then you can listen several times to the show. You can tune in. This is on Blog Talk Radio, on Facebook Live, and it is also on YouTube. Writing therapy is a really important part of this. To write. I'm going to, certainly you can write letters you never mail. That's a valid form of therapy. You can write about what happened. You can create stories and books out of all this. Of course you can. That's all wonderful. I say go for it. Absolutely. But there's another kind of writing that I'm going to talk about too, that people that have been trained in it find very helpful, and that is the dialogue with God. You have to get yourself into a real sacred space, and then you ask a question and you get an answer. You ask a question and you get an answer. This was certainly highlighted in, what were those books? Talking to God, Dialogue with God. I've forgotten the name of it. Neale Donald Walsh's books. That's what he does. And he's a very good automatic writer. And that's a marvelous thing to learn how to do. If you need guidance, my people can certainly tell you how to do that. But it's a marvelous therapy to be able to, say, I don't know what I'm doing here, and I'm just lost. What do I need to do? And get a really loving answer. We can fool ourselves when we're automatic writing and only talk to our egos, or we can talk to, whoever. It is in our best interest to prepare to receive the highest level of information from the ascended God we are, from the higher consciousness we are. This is not a woo-woo thing. Conversations with God. Thank you, Peter. Oh, you're so sweet. Peter, what would I do without you? You're my translator today. Thank you, sweetheart. I appreciate that. Yes, Neale Donald Walsh's books were called, at least the first book was called Conversations with God. All of them are excellent. And this is what he did. Now, this isn't just something that he has a talent for. Everybody in the world has a talent for this. Isn't that surprising? Thank you, Lisa. Everybody in the world has this ability to do this. You're just not trained to do it. And you're not trained in trusting yourself and going down deep enough. But let me tell you, when you do consciousness work, you start becoming very adept at listening and knowing that the ego is not in the way. And you can receive not only important information, but information from such a high source really affects you. It changes you. You get it. The next, I was thinking about whether I should tell the story, but I don't think it's necessary. The other thing that Anna Dietz mentions is symbolic forgiveness. And, symbolic forgiveness is writing your sins on, I'm putting quotes around that, on a piece of paper and burning them in the fire, or throwing them away, or, scattering the ashes over wherever. If that helps you, I think that's just fine. However, what we do here in this arena is get rid of it permanently. That just makes you feel better. So I would hope that you would go back to some of the things that we're saying here. If you need help, there are many guides like my group that will help you really dig this out and get rid of it so you can be free. I would hope you would do that. Prayer and meditation certainly are very helpful. I've known a lot of screwed up people, however, that meditate regularly. That is not to disparage meditation. That is to say that I think all of us need to be sincere in our activities and willing to make the changes in our lives, implement those, rather than sit and meditate and not ever take action. Okay? I think prayer is extremely important, and I want to put on the table to you about prayer that, in my opinion, we don't have enough prayers that are conscious and deliberate. I want to put on the table right now that I have quite a different attitude about prayer. I think everybody is praying. I think we're praying machines. I think we pray all the time. I think you would live constant prayer. But here's the rub. If you're coming from the ego child's mind, those are your prayers. They're selfish, they're self-indulgent, it's all about you. It's all about you at the expense of others, or about others at the expense of you. It's that kind of trade-off. It's got a lot of lies and deception to it. And they're prayers from the highest self and the oneness with you and the God, the aspect of God you are. And it's contributory in creating win-wins and creative and a lot more. I think every single thing we say and do fits into one of those two categories. So I think everything you're doing is prayer. But you're listening to the show to say, oh, interesting, everything's a prayer, and I'm praying really from the ego child's mind, you're just going to get more of that. Or I'm praying from the highest self, you will just get more of that. Where do you invest your energy? What's your life like? So we must be more deliberate and conscious with what we're doing, because those are our two selves. We have the egoic child's mind that developed along with the ego about 18 months old. Then enough bad things that happened in your past that you wanted to protect yourself from, whether it was a late feeding or being too long in a wet diaper, God knows what happened. And then, so what we do is we create the ego in the ego child's mind to project into the future so that we can be safe. We're scanning for like things like the past so that we can protect ourselves, right? This is where anxiety is coming from. This is, our anticipation of events that will hurt us, our expectations sometimes. So it's an extremely important thing to realize that we must live in the now. And that's the next thing she suggests, is being mindful. Now, here's my opinion. I think mindfulness is extremely hard to do unless you reach a certain level of consciousness, because you have the ego child's mind dragging you back to the past and imposing the past on the present all the time and projecting into the future, and you're not here. And this is the only creative space there is in this present time, right here. So we have to go back and talk about the past and get it resolved in your central nervous system. So you're not acting out of that anymore, and you see all the choices you have, and you make your highest ones, because that's what consciousnness does. It says, here are the ego, child's mind choices. Here's what you've always done. Let's shut those doors. Can we do that? And you say, at one point you say yes, or yes, but that much, and then we'll eventually get that, right? And we go on and make better and better choices for ourselves in the higher mind, where we are one with the ascended God. You see, the thing that confuses everybody about God is that there's a fear-based experience of God and a love-based experience of God, because everything is the ego, and the ego child's mind's all God. It's just lower. Highest self is God. That's the higher frequencies of God. We're confused about that, because in our ego child's mind, we think that anything that hurts us, God's absent. God's never absent. We have a system we need to be more conscious of, so we can be on this path and have a nice life and provide by the lives for others. Another thing that she recommends is imagery. This is a kind of meditation where you go on a journey, and I say the same thing about that. I think that that's a marvelous thing if you're given to that. Let's talk about meditations here for a moment. For years, I struggled with big classes, and when we taught meditation, some people really liked imagery. Some people could not do imagery because they were literalists. Some people were more physically oriented and wanted to do breathing or whatever. All these are really valid exercises. Some people preferred the transcendental meditation. I like them all, quite frankly, but I'm going to mention two things to you. The first one is, I like brainwave technologies. There are a lot of them out there. My favorite, because I like the music on it, is a tape that's been around for a long time, a CD by Dr. Andrew Weil. You know who he is. He's the bald doctor with the big bushy beard, quite cute. And he's got a CD out there called Sound Mind, Sound Body. It's classically inspired music. You'll recognize some of the themes. It's beautiful. And it starts you in alpha and takes you down through theta and delta, and then comes back to theta and back to delta. I'm sorry, to alpha, and deposits you there. It's really quite the nice CD. It lasts about an hour. But here's my thing. I don't believe in sitting down. I don't believe in sitting down and forcing myself to meditate. If I don't have a living client in front of me, I often have that CD or a CD of brainwave technologies like it playing in the background softly. And it's a lovely thing that is just really nice, because in my work, I'm playing from alpha through theta to delta and theta and delta. That's where all the information lies when I'm working with people. But most of the time, we're in that little jagged brainwave place, which is called beta. And we're here, and we're just, we got to get a lot done and all that. But the alpha brainwave is the peak performance brainwave. All of the brainwaves, alpha, theta, and delta, are all, even though they may be associated as theta is with pre-sleep state, delta with a sleep state, let me tell you, all of them have incredible information, and you don't have to be asleep to experience the information from day as I'm working on you. All of these brainwave states have different information. So I really like this. And the way these CDs work, all of them is they will start you out someplace and then they drop you. And sometimes they leave you there and sometimes they bring you back. It doesn't matter. trying to accomplish there. And but your brain waves, your beta brain waves, are going to match those brain waves given about 5 or 10 minutes. Now, when you first start any meditation program, you're going to have the monkey mind. That's what the Chinese called it. I think it's very accurate. You've seen monkeys just jumping from tree to tree and around in their cages and whatever. Okay, that's the monkey mind. So get through the monkey mind. It takes about 2 or 3 weeks. You'll be in that deeper place. It takes about 2.5 to 3 waves to stay in the lower brainwave states. And that's what these CDs do. They train you to stay in the lower brainwave states, these frequencies. So it's not just that you're experiencing marvelous meditation in the moment. But for God's sake, I don't have the tape on when I'm interacting with anybody, but I have that tape on when I am by myself and doing something repetitive or working here at the computer or writing or whatever. It's a wonderful thing. The other meditation I like very much is a walking meditation, and that is to get yourself in a meditative state. Then try to stay there, then interact with your fellow man and go do something and live, but in those lower brainwave states. The last thing that Deeds recommends is self-talk, that we have to remind ourselves to, we have to listen to what we're saying to ourselves, number one, I will say. And then catch ourselves when we're saying things that are partial truths or out and out lies, or part of our story that, by the way, has got to go. Real important to start being aware of what comes out of your mouth and what you're taking in as well. I'm very aware of what people say to me. I'm very aware of what I am saying. I'm very aware of the messages that are coming across the television in terms of commercials and even in movies and things like that, I am my own person, and this is relative to what I am hearing. And I suggest the same thing to you. We just can't be leaves in the wind that are buffered here and there when we hear from other people. You don't have to confront anybody. You need to, though, say to yourself, oh, I don't believe that. Okay. Well, that's what they believe. That's fine. So, guys, we are at the end of our show. And I hope that you've got some takeaways now. I think I'm going to probably take next week off for Thanksgiving, a little break for me next Sunday, but I'll be back the following Sunday. Let's see what that will be. I guess that's December already, isn't it? It will be, so I'm taking December 1st, I think, off, and so I will be back on the 8th. So I'll see you then, okay? Now that could change. This morning I told my husband I was going to do that, and he went, no! It was like, babe, I want to spend the day with you. No, you should do the radio show. I don't know what that's about. I will find out, though. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Let's do a quick prayer to get rid of all this, and we'll go on with a wonderful life, okay? That's what I'm wishing for you. Dear God, thank you so much for all of this this experience today with each other. It's an interesting world now that we're all linked through technology all over the world. And we are here to learn together, to hold the light together, and certainly to be more loving. We ask that you put the love in our hearts, the light in our cells, the wisdom in our being. We open ourselves to that right now. We say that we want to hear what you would have us do with this information as a first step. We ask that we not be overwhelmed, but that we actively move on some of this. And we thank you so much for the privilege and the opportunity to be together all over the world and to be friends, even friends that are pixelated sometimes, speaking as our broadcast. We thank you so much for all of this. Now we open to surrender anything that we ourselves will allow to surrender. We surrender things from the ego child's mind to the highest self in us, that these things may be transmuted and changed into deeper levels of love and creativity and appreciation and awe of life and gratitude for living this existence. And I thank all of you for being with me today and being with each other. It's a great life, and I am so thrilled to do this with you every week, except maybe next one. And we thank this and say this prayer, dear God, in your name, in the name of all the ascended masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to this show. We thank you, and so it is. Guys, thank you so much for following us, sharing us, befriending us, and liking us. That means a lot to us. So if you will be kind enough to do that with this show, if this has meant anything to you, and with other shows that do, we would really appreciate it. Take me seriously now, those study groups. If you are interested in doing that, it's pretty easy to put together. You meet and you listen to these shows and you have a discussion about what's going on in your lives relative to what's going on in the show. And it's really quite a wonderful experience, and people are beginning to get a lot out of those things, and I hope you will. So God bless you very much. Love you very much. You remember that God loves you through you. So notice what you're doing. And that's the first step to the conscious experience, of course, that awareness. I wish you the best. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and happy Thanksgiving.